We are here today in the dark shadow cast by Putin's war. A war we did not provoke, a war we did not start. An outrageous invasion of a sovereign, independent state. On behalf of the European Parliament, I condemn the Russian military aggression against Ukraine in the strongest possible terms and express my solidarity with all those suffering and all those killed. The message from Europe is clear. We will stand up. We will not look away when those fighting in the streets for our values face down Putin's massive war machine. We will support the International Criminal Court's jurisdiction and investigation of war crimes in Ukraine. We will hold him accountable, just as we will hold Lukashenko. We are facing an existential threat to the Europe we know, the Europe so many have given so much for. And this is why, on this important day, I am pleased to announce that President Zelensky will address us shortly, followed by Speaker Ruslan Stefanchuk, the chair of the Rada of Ukraine. And allow me also to have a special welcome to the Ambassador of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people present in the plenary today. Mr. President, thank you for showing the world what it means to stand up. Thank you for reminding us about the dangers of complacency. Everyday acts of extraordinary heroism by Ukrainians inspire us all. Defence forces and citizens making the ultimate sacrifice to delay a column of tanks. Senior citizens standing up to face down Russian troops with nothing but pride and sunflowers as their weapon. Brave women forced to give birth in metro stations next to their Kalashnikovs. They showed the world that our way of life is worth defending. It is worth a cost. All those who remember living under occupation will attest to that. All those standing up in Belarus, all those looking to us in Moldova, in Georgia. It is worth it for us, for the next generation, for all those in Ukraine and around the world who believe in Europe and in our way, and for all those who want to be free. Our European response was on display over the last very painful days. This must be our whatever it takes moment. Neighbouring states have accepted hundreds of thousands of fleeing Ukrainians. Europeans sheltered Ukrainians in their homes. We have implemented a series of unprecedented, massive sanctions. We have gone further and will provide much-needed weapons to Ukraine. We have declared that Russian aircraft and oligarchs' private jets are no longer welcome in our open skies. We have moved for Russia to be disconnected from the SWIFT system. We have banned Kremlin propaganda tools. European citizens, organisations, businesses, sports have taken a clear and forceful stand, underlining that they will not deal with or welcome an aggressor. And Europe stands ready to go further still. We recognise Ukraine's European perspective. And as our resolution clearly states, we welcome, Mr. President, Ukraine's application for candidate status, and we will work towards that goal, because we will. Because we will and we must face the future together. Mr. President, we stand with you in your fight for survival in this dark moment in our history. When you look to this European Parliament, you will always find an ally, a space to address Europe and the world, and always, always a friend. This European Parliament has a long, proud history of being a thorn in the side of autocrats. And in this spirit, I will seek a ban on any representatives of the Kremlin from entering European Parliament premises. Because aggressors and warmongers have no place in the House of Democracy. Dear President, dear members, let me finish out by setting out 4 important principles for our future. First of all, Europe can no longer remain reliant on Kremlin gas. We need to redouble our efforts to diversify our energy systems towards a Europe that is no longer at the behest of autocrats, that will put our energy security on stronger footing. Secondly, Europe can no longer welcome Kremlin cash and pretend that there are no strings attached. Putin's oligarchs and those who bankroll him should no longer be able to use their purchasing power to hide behind a veneer of respectability in our cities, in our communities, or in our sports clubs. Their super yachts should find no harbour in our Europe, and we can no longer sell passports to Putin's friends, allowing them to circumvent our security. No more. Thirdly, investment in our defence must match our rhetoric. Europe must move to have a real security and defence union. We have shown last week that it is possible and desirable, and more than anything, it is necessary. And fourthly, we must fight the Kremlin's disinformation campaign. And I call on social media and tech conglomerates to take their responsibility seriously and to understand that there is no being neutral between the fire and the fire brigade. President Michel, President von der Leyen, High Representative Borrell, thank you for ensuring European unity and commitment in facing this threat. I know that all of us, all the members of this House, will take the united message of Europe back to our constituencies. President Zelensky, thank you. We are together now. We will be together in the future because we are with Ukraine. Thank you.
Dear members of the European Parliament, I will try to share with you my thoughts on the meaning of the tragic events that we are living and the provisional lessons that we can draw from them, especially for the common security and defence policy, which I had the honour to try to develop, and remains an intergovernmental policy, a policy which is yet in the hands of the member states, but cannot be implemented efficiently without the strong cooperation of the Commission competences. I think this is the moment in which the geopolitical Europe is being born. Ça, c'est l'acte de naissance de l'Europe géopolitique. Le moment où nous prenons conscience des défis auxquels nous faisons face, le moment auquel l'Europe doit faire face à ses responsabilités, le moment où nous prenons conscience que, pour la première fois depuis la fin de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, un pays invade un autre, et ce pays, il a de l'arme nucléaire, c'est qu'on monte sa capacité d'intimidation. Ça me fait malade de penser à l'analogie historique que ces événements ont par rapport au début de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. But it is really the return of tragedy to which Europe is being confronted today. The return of tragedy, far from frightening us, should galvanize us. First, because it believes the idea that the European project had lost its momentum because the horizon of the war has been faded. Unfortunately not. This reminds us that the evil, the tragedy and the war never fade away. And it's about the relationship with war, with the use of force, with the violence, who have been debating here. We have been debating for years to find out can Europe can counter it. And this is why in the recent years we have talked more about defence issues than in the past, and we have begun to set up joint military programmes. Well, that's why the European Parliament itself has voted to set this European Defence Fund, and the Member States has created this European Peace Facility that now we are mobilising in order to provide arms to Ukraine. The European Council in the next weeks will adopt the strategic compass, and with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we must amplify our reflection, adjust our means and anticipate our responses. Because one of the lessons that we have to learn from the invasion of Ukraine is that more than ever, Europe must to think strategically about itself, its environment and the world. This is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Europe must amplify its reflection on security issues, and the European Parliament has had an important role to play in this regard. We think we need to think about the instrument of coercion, retaliation and counterattack in the face of reckless adversaries, because all we need to understand is that to make peace, we need to be two. But to make war is enough to be one. This is exactly what Mr. Putin is telling us. And that's why we have to increase our deterrent capacity a lot. We need to increase our deterrence capacity in order to prevent war. And it's clear that our deterrent has not been strong enough to stop Mr. Putin's aggression. But since this aggression has started, we have reacted in the last few days in a way that Mr. Putin didn't expect. And we are showing him that we will never sacrifice our freedom and the freedom of others on the altar of our well-being and prosperity. Being president of this parliament in 2007, I had the opportunity to tell to Mr. Putin eye to eyes on the aftermath of the killing of a journalist, Anna Politkovskaya. I told him, we are not going to change human rights by your gas. And this is the moment to repeat and to act on that. We will not share, we will not abandon the defense of our human rights and freedom, because we are more or less dependent on Russia. And we have to start working quickly, as the Commission has proposed, in order to cancel this dependency. Last Saturday, after having held another Foreign Affairs Council and attending the debate of the European Union Council, I was talking with you, President Michel, and you told me, are we doing everything we can? Is there something more than we can do? Is that enough? Are we so powerless? And you told me, think, do, act. We have to push member states in order to adopt decisions on SWIFT and to take Russia out of the financial system. Think about how can we arm Ukraine, not country by country, one after all, in an uncoordinated manner. And you encouraged me to talk with member states again. In few hours, we agreed on using this European peace facility in order to bring financial support and coordinate member states on arming Ukrainian army and people. In less than 24 hours, another taboo had fallen. And the President of the Commission immediately, showing a strong leadership, started working in order to get an agreement with our international partners in order to make possible to switch off Russia from the financial system. And you know what? Now, half of the reserves of the Central Bank of Russia are completely out of their control. They are frozen. Do you imagine? This is the coercion capacity. 3 days ago it was impossible, and now it's possible, and they start feeling the consequences in terms of inflation and the fall of their currency. Yes, we have capacities. We have mobilized these capacities, and we have to continue doing so, putting together the capacities of the member states and the European Union. I want to remember you that the European Peace Facility is not part of the budget that you vote. It is another budget. It's an intergovernmental fund managed by the member states, because we claim that we, European Union, we're a peaceful force and we cannot provide arms to anyone else. Yes, we can. Yes, we have done. On the next budget, think about it. When you vote the next budget, use your budgetary capacity. You have the budgetary capacity of this institution to put the ways and means in order to face the next crisis and the next Russian aggression.
Madam President of the European Parliament, Mr. President of the Council, High Representative, Mr. President of the Ukraine, dear Volodymyr, Mr. Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, my honourable members, war has returned to Europe. Almost 30 years after the Balkan Wars and over half a century after Soviet troops marched into Prague and Budapest, civil defence sirens again went off in the heart of a European capital. Thousands of people fleeing from bombs camped in underground stations, holding hands, crying silently, trying to cheer each other up. Cars lined up towards Ukrainian western borders. And when many of them ran out of fuel, people picked up their children and their backpacks and marched for tens of kilometers towards our union. They sought refuge inside our borders because their country wasn't safe any longer. Because inside Ukraine, a gruesome death count has begun. Men, women, children are dying once again because a foreign leader, President Putin, decided that their country, Ukraine, has no right to exist. And we will never, ever let that happen and never, ever accept that. Honourable members, this is a moment of truth for Europe. And let me quote the editorial of one Ukrainian newspaper, the Kyiv Independent, published just hours before the invasion began, and I quote, "This is not just about Ukraine. It's a clash of two worlds, two polar set of values." End of quote. They are so right. This is a clash between the rule of law and the rule of the gun, between democracies and autocracies, between a rules-based order and a world of naked aggression. How we respond today to what Russia is doing will determine the future of the international system. The destiny of Ukraine is at stake, but our own fate also lies in the balance. We must show the power that lies in our democracies. We must show the power of people that choose their independent path freely and democratically. This is our show of force. And today, a union of almost 500 million people has mobilized for Ukraine. The people of Europe are demonstrating in front of Russian embassies all across our union. Many of them have opened their homes to Ukrainians fleeing from Putin's bombs. And let me thank especially Poland, Romania, Slovakia and Hungary for welcoming these women, men and children. Europe will be there for them, not only in the first days, but also in the weeks and months to come. That must be our promise altogether. And this is why we are proposing to activate the temporary protection mechanism to provide them with a secure status and access to schools, medical care and work. They deserve it. We need to do that now. And we know this is only the beginning. More Ukrainians will need our protection and solidarity. We are and we will be there for them. Our union is showing a unity of purpose that makes me proud. At the speed of light, the European Union has adopted 3 waves of heavy sanctions against Russia's financial system, its high-tech industries and its corrupt elite. And this is the largest sanctions package in our union's history. We do not take these measures lightly, but we feel we had to act. These sanctions will take a heavy toll on the Russian economy and on the Kremlin. We are disconnecting key Russian banks from the SWIFT network. We also banned the transaction of Russia's central bank, the single most important financial institution in Russia, and this paralyzes billions of foreign reserves, turning off the tap on Russia's and Putin's war. We have to end this financing of his war. And second, we target important sectors of the Russian economy. We are making it impossible for Russia to upgrade its oil refineries, to repair and modernize its air fleet, and to access many important technologies it needs to build a prosperous future. We've closed our skies
to Russian aircraft, including the private jets of oligarchs. And make no mistake, we will freeze their other assets as well, be it yachts or fancy cars or luxury prosperities. We'll freeze that all together. And thirdly, in another unprecedented step, we're suspending the licenses of the Kremlin's propaganda machine. The state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik and all of their subsidiaries will no longer be able to spread their lies to justify Putin's war and to divide our union. And these are unprecedented actions by the European Union and our partners in response of an unprecedented aggression by Russia. Each one of these steps has been closely coordinated with our partners and allies. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada and Norway, but also, for example, Japan, South Korea and Australia. All of these days you see that more than 30 countries representing well over half of the world's economy have also announced sanctions and export controls on Russia. And if Putin was seeking to divide the European Union, to weaken NATO and to break the international community, he has achieved exactly the opposite. We are more united than ever, and we will stand up in this war. That is for clear, that we will overcome and we will prevail. We are united and we stay united. Honourable members, I am well aware that these sanctions will come at a cost for our economy too. I know this, and I want to speak honestly to the people of Europe. We have endured 2 years of pandemic, and we all wished that we could focus on our economic and social recovery. But I believe the people of Europe understand very well that we must stand up against this cruel aggression. Yes, protecting our liberty comes at a price, but this is a defining moment, and this is the cost we are willing to pay, because freedom is priceless, honourable members. This is our principle. Freedom is priceless. Our investments today will make us more independent tomorrow. And I'm thinking first and foremost about our energy security. We simply cannot rely so much on a supplier that explicitly threatens us. And this is why we reached out to other global suppliers, and they responded. Norway is stepping up. In January, we had the record supply of LNG gas. We're building new LNG terminals and working on interconnectors. But in the long run, it is our switch to renewables and hydrogen that will make us truly independent. We have to accelerate the green transition, because every kilowatt hour of electricity Europe generates from solar, wind, hydropower or biomass reduces our dependency on Russian gas and other energy sources. This is a strategic investment. And my honourable members, this is a strategic investment because on top, less dependency on Russian gas and other fossil fuel sources also means less money for the Kremlin's war chest. This is also a truth. We are resolute. Europe can rise up to the challenge. The same is true on defence. European security and defence has evolved more in the last 6 days than in the last 2 decades. Most member states have promised deliveries of military equipment to Ukraine. Germany announced that it will meet the 2% goal of NATO as soon as possible. And our union, for the first time ever, is using the European budget to purchase and deliver military equipment to a country that is under attack. 500 million euros for the European Peace Facility to support Ukraine's defence. As a first batch, we will now also match this by at least 500 million euro from the EU budget to deal with the humanitarian consequences of this tragic war, both in the country and for the refugees. Honourable members, this is a watershed moment for our Union. We cannot take our security and the protection of people for granted. We have to stand up for it. We have to invest in it. We have to carry our fair share of the responsibility. And this crisis is changing Europe. But Russia has also reached a crossroad. The actions of the Kremlin are severely damaging the long-term interests of Russia and its people. More and more Russians understand this as well. They are marching for peace and freedom. And how does the Kremlin respond to this? By arresting thousands of them. But ultimately, the longing for peace and freedom cannot be silenced. There is another Russia besides Putin's tanks, and we extend our hand of friendship to this other Russia. Be assured they have our support. Honourable members, in these days, independent Ukraine is facing its darkest hour. At the same time, the Ukrainian people are holding up the torch of freedom for all of us. They are showing immense courage. They are defending their lives. But they are also fighting for universal values, and they are willing to die for them. President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people are a true inspiration. And when we last spoke, he told me again about his people's dream to join our union. Today, the European Union and Ukraine are already closer than ever before. There is still a long path ahead. We have to end this war, and we should talk about the next steps. But I am sure nobody in this hemicycle can doubt that a people that stands up so bravely for our European values belongs in our European family. And therefore, honourable members, I say, long live Europe and long live a free and independent Ukraine. Mes vame, slava Ukraine.